Can you hear me? Just an audio check.
Yes, we can hear you, Shen.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Springer Lane platform training, together with the organizers of Union University Malaysia Pahang, Al Sultan Abdullah. I appreciate the co-organization with the librarians at University Malaysia Pahang. And today we have Ken Yeap, which is a licensing manager representing the institutional sales of both Malaysia and Brunei. Mr. Ken Yeap is a Malaysian himself. He's based in Kuala Lumpur office, and he has many years of experience in publishing as well in the use of Springer Nature products and services. Some housekeeping rules for this virtual webinar is that everyone will be muted for the best audio effect and for recording purposes. If you have questions, you can input it in the Q&A chat box, and we will address it accordingly, especially after the session. And there will be a survey at the end of the training, and the recording will be shared by the library after the session. A certificate will also be delivered to all participants after the completion of the session. And there's also an activity that will take place from the start of the webinar. So keep your eyes open and also have your ears listening carefully during the training. So how does this work is that the audience needs to guess the secret word that will be mentioned at least one time or more than one. Answer at the end by typing into the chat box when both Ken and I question the audience what is the secret word. The first person to guess correctly will win a mystery prize by Springer Nature. So, for example, if you guess that Ken himself often mentioned the word bottle, hair dryer, so the answer would be bottle or hair dryer. So I give a warm welcome to Ken, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Shen. I'll take over the screen from here. Let me see if this works. Okay, I think you can see my screen. Hopefully it's working. Yeah, and you can see the camera now. Good morning, everyone. We have a rather small, sizable group today. But so I want to thank every one of you for joining us from wherever you are. Either you're in campus in UNP or could be back at home or in your hometown or working from wherever. I want to welcome you to join us from a slightly wet KL this morning. But anyway, thank you for taking the time. And I believe you are here because you wanted to learn a few things, which will hopefully benefit your life as a student, as a researcher, or someone who is interested in resources from your library. So let me begin. I have a few slides, of which I want to introduce the people I work for, Springer Nature. So who is Springer Nature? We are a leading global research publisher. Myself and Shen, we are part of a network of 10,000 employees across 50 countries, including here in Malaysia. We have a local presence here in Malaysia and a strong Southeast Asian presence over the different countries here in Southeast Asia. As a publisher, as in the name itself, you may have heard or seen some of our names or brands before. So, for example, I will mention many times the term or the name Springer Nature or Springer, Nature, Palgrave, Macmillan, BMC. These are all components or brands or sub-brands beneath the big Springer Nature umbrella group. Now, as a researcher, we handle roughly 1.5 million article submissions per year. and we publish close to about a third of that. Well, we think we will publish that by the end of this year. And we work with actually, 100 over 1,000 academic editors and also 750,000 peer reviewers. So some of you may have already interacted with us before, either as a consumer of our content. So you may have read our books, our journals, and our articles that have been published on our many platforms. Or you could have been, gone one step further and published with us. Or in fact, you could have been one of those editors or peer reviewers whom our editors have worked with in order to get articles and books submitted and published. So I'm from, Shen and I are from the research side, but we also have a health and education division. But primarily we work around the same things. So around things like books and journals and magazines and research solutions. And our mission as a company, as a publisher, as an academic research publisher, is to open doors to discovery. And we do so in two main ways. The first of which is providing access to trusted knowledge. Again, this is probably why you're here today. You want to learn how to consume or to be able to get access to good, valuable, world-class research knowledge, and we'll definitely be teaching you how to do so, or to do so better today. But on top of that, and also on the other side of the same coin, we also help researchers to disseminate their findings. So meaning once you have consumed research information, right? You have read journal articles, you have read books published by us and other publishers. We also want to be the home for you to be able to publish your research, your findings. And why are we doing this? I think as a leading academic research publisher, we believe that what we do, in a way, contributes to accelerate the solutions to the world's greatest problems. So as researchers yourselves, as students, or as practitioners or lecturers, you may be very well involved in trying to solve a modern day problem, either trying to innovate to do something better or to solve an age-old problem that has not been solved yet. And in doing so, you are doing research to be able to identify what is wrong, to get data, and to see how you could discover that solution. And we are part of that process or that ecosystem. So as I mentioned earlier, we do our, we practice our opening doors to discovery through these various brands that you may have come across before. So I think in UMPSA, you should be quite familiar with the names of Springer Nature, Springer, maybe not so much with Nature or Macmillan. Some of you may have come across BMC or ADIS before, but all of this again is just part of the family of the Springer Nature. So as a company, and as a publisher, we've been around for a very long time, over 180 years old, if you can believe. So since 1842, where our founders started a very small bookshop in Berlin, all the way to today, where we are a leading digital first academic and research hub. And a company, let alone any kind of company, will not survive for 180 years if it were not to innovate. And of course, in order to be able to stay relevant today's time and date, you have to embrace technology, and we've done so. And in doing so, there are certain examples of how we do it. Like, for example, we publish 90% of all our journal content, including those that are over 180 years old, available digitally on our platforms, which we will be showing you in the focus of today's training. We also publish 300 over 1,000 books in both print and digital format. And actually, every new publication that comes from Springer Nature will be digital first. We're also a publisher that focuses a lot on the SDGs, which I'm sure is relevant and important to the likes of yourselves, whether or not you're a seasoned, lecturer or researcher who has been doing research for decades, or you're a young student, just coming into the academic sector with a burgeoning intent to either gain valuable knowledge to be able to solve problems in line with the SDGs in the future. We too, as a publisher, take it very seriously, and we try to publish all of our works today relevant to the SDGs, or at least aiming to touch on some of the SDGs when they get published. So in terms of the more granular nitty-gritty for today's topic, now that I've explained to you who we are and why you're listening to me or to Springer Nature today, we'll basically be trying to educate you or to share with you the platforms that are available to you from UMPSA's library. So we will be focusing on how to get authenticated access to make sure you logged in properly, how you would prevent access issues, or I'm sure there have been situations whereby you wanted to get access to a particular document or a book or a journal article, but you may have been turned away, and that could have been solved through proper accessing. So hopefully we'll get through that quickly. Then we'll touch on things like the platform features. There have been some updates, or there will be some updates to the Springer Link and Springer Nature Link platforms moving forward, which I will explain. And also I'll touch on some of the more detailed stuff as when we dive into the actual documents. So specifically, what do you as users from UMPSA have first? Now, first of all, we'll be talking about the Springer Link platform and what's technically accessible to you through your library website on this platform is actually 970 plus subscription-based Springer, Palgrave, and other society journals, which typically range from content-wise from current year, 2024, all the way back to 1997. And on top of that 970, close to 1,000 titles, you also have over 600 fully open access titles that are published on the same website. On top of that, your library has, over the years, accumulated or built up a collection of ebooks on the same platform. So there are about 2,100 plus at last count, including very latest titles in the areas of engineering and AI, if I'm not mistaken, which was recently acquired by your library. And on top of those that were bought, we also do publish 3,000 plus other open access ebook titles on the same platform. So you will be spoiled for choice in that sense, in terms of having plenty, if not millions of journal articles, and also thousands of ebooks on the same platform. So the platform itself, if you're wondering, does it apply to you in terms of your interest in the research area? Springerlink is a very wide and diverse and deep platform. It publishes content from everything from the physical and life sciences, including the areas of science, technology, engineering, medicine, AI, mathematics, physics, astronomy, etc. And on the other side of the spectrum, from the social sciences, we're looking at areas such as humanities, business, accounting, finance, language, religion, culture, sociology, and many, many more, as you will see and be demonstrated after this. In order to be able to log into to correctly and how to do so, we will actually be starting the demonstration after this through your library website. And I think there's a little screenshot on the center of the screen right now where you can find our platform under the e-resources sub-page on your library website. But first, before we get to the actual demonstration, I'd like to make one very important but short announcement. Although later you will find on the platform live when I'm demonstrating it from my screen, the platform is still currently called Springer Link, and the website URL is link.springer.com. But actually, there will be a big announcement moving forward, or actually, it's already been announced, but this change will take place on the 24th of October. So just 10 days from today, whereby if you're logging in on that day onwards, so let's say after today's lesson, you have already learned, you're interested, and you come back to the platform in about 10 days time, you will notice that the name has actually been changed to Springer Nature Link. Now, this is just a renaming or rebranding exercise. The platform is still the same. The accessibility, the content, the functionality, everything else will still be the same as what you will learn and discover today. So there have already been plenty of upgrades that have taken place on the platform ever since late last year, in fact, or I think since the last time we did this training for UMP. And perhaps today, if you had attended that one last year, today you will find that perhaps there are a few more additional functionalities as compared to the older version. So without further ado, I'm going to stop the slide sharing here. Then we're going to jump straight to our live platform. So let me reshare the screen. Okay. All right. Shen, can you just help me confirm where you can see the
Yes,
screen
we
fully?
see the library video.
Okay, that's great. Great. So what you should be able to see, if things are working well on your end, is a live feed of the browser that I'm using. And right now we are on your library website. So UMPSA's library website, or also known as, or if the URL spelled out is library.umpsa.edu.my. You can very easily Google UMPSA library if you aren't already familiar with this website. And the reason why I'm starting here from the library's website is to ensure, number one, that you get qualified, authenticated access, authorized access to the Springer Link platform by starting from here. So of course, you could always start by opening up your Google Chrome or your Mozilla Firefox or whatever browser that you are using and directly go to the Springer Link website, which is free to visit as a member of the public, but you may not necessarily be able to access the 900 plus subscription-based journals and also the 2,100 plus ebooks that I had mentioned earlier. In order to do that, you will need to authenticate. And how you do so is again, first by coming to the library website and put your mouse or hover your mouse over the collection button and click on the e-resources tab. In doing so, you will find that we will have arrived at this page where I had shown you a screenshot of this before. And this is actually where your library has very carefully curated all of the different platforms or databases, as you may know them as, that is subscribed by your library, meaning your library has paid a lot of money to be able for you to access the contents from these various publishers and databases that are subscribed by your library. If we scroll slightly below, because things are arranged in alphabetical order, once we reach the S, you will notice there is a Springer Link tab here. So in order to visit the platform, there are several options for you to do so. First, there is a direct link, and I would only urge you to utilize the direct link here if you were, number one, connected to the Wi-Fi in your university campus itself. So for example, you could be sitting in your faculty building and connected to the Wi-Fi of that building, and you visited the library's website as we're doing right now. You can then click direct link. What that would do is actually it would redirect you to the Springer Link platform, and you should therefore be authenticated as an authorized user, as all of the IP addresses under your university's account is then registered with our platform, and therefore you should be automatically detected as an authorized UMPSA user and would not have to do any more authentication. But however, if you were in campus or at home, and more importantly, utilizing a internet source that is not related to your university. So for example, you could be using your own hotspot, or you could be using the Wi-Fi from a cafe outside or at your home. Please ensure to use the off-campus link or institutional log. I think either one would work. And what you will be prompted to do is to input a student ID, username and ID. And if you do not have the information or the password or username here, I would encourage you to reach out to the closest librarian, and they should be able to assist you by giving you the username or password. Okay? So you could do either option. And once you've done so, you will probably be like, for example, if you're using the institutional login, you will be asked to put in, I think, your UMP student ID or email, and then follow the steps to log in. So once that is done, you should then be redirected to the platform. And Shane, can I just confirm again? You can see me now at the Springer Link platform. I think so. Okay. So
Yes.
once you are here, okay, thanks, Shane. Once you are here, you should, or if you have followed the steps that I have mentioned earlier, either logging in directly if you're using the university Wi-Fi, or if you're using an external internet source, logging in your either institutional login and using your student ID or email. If you've done so and arrive here, you would have already probably solved 90% of the problems that you would have faced prior to this knowledge. Now, because the platform is able to auto-detect based on the login procedures that you've done. And if you scroll to the bottom of the page, of the homepage, you should notice under the sign here, you would see your university's name. In fact, you'll probably see your IP address and also the various um, lines that would one of which you should be able to see your university's name. And just by that fact that you are able to see that, you should have in safe knowledge know that you have accessed the platform as an authorized user, and therefore should be able to access the content that has been paid for by your university. Okay, so that this step itself in lies usually solves 90% of the problems that new users have with the platform in order to get access to content that they really want but were previously unavailable behind a paywall. Now, I'll bring your attention to the top right-hand side of the page, where you will find there is still a login sign here. Now, of course, I'm doing this demonstration from my office, and therefore I will not be able to show you that on my screen where it will say that I'm logged in as a UMPSA authorized user. But because I'm a Springer Nature employee, I don't have to do that. I'm logging in via my office gives me access similarly as how you would gain access as a UMPSA student or user. Now, this login sign is not necessary in order for you to gain access to the content that I mentioned earlier, but it does provide you a few additional functionalities on the platform should you want to create a login or profile for yourself. If I click on it, you will notice that it will ask me to sign in or to create a new ID. So if I have already an email ID that I have created before, I can go ahead and log in. If not, you can always continue with Google and use your Google account as, in a way, the profile for the platform itself. All you would typically need to create a profile is actually just a working email address and a password that you should remember in every time you want to log in. Now, again, it doesn't limit your capability of accessing what is rightly available to you through your university. But what it does, it creates think of it as like another social media account or platform profile for you on the SpringerLink platform. And I will explain to you later how this would have an effect on some of the functionalities that additional functionalities that you could have while you're utilizing the platform. And in some ways, it does help to improve the user experience of yourself on the platform. Okay. Now, if you've logged in and created a new account, you can do so now or you can do so later. It doesn't matter. But once you've done so and you're logged in, you should be able to see your name or the username of the profile you created on the top right-hand side, and that should follow you wherever you go whilst you're on the platform. So let me then now move on to the different functionalities that we can find at least here on the home page first. Now, at the top center, or maybe just below the top center, you will find there is a universal search bar. So this search bar is very much similar to the one here. So you can use either one. This one at the top, which is predominantly, will be found there wherever you go on the platform, is a quick way to get into the universal search bar. But here on the front homepage itself, there is one here which you can also use. Functionality is the same. And this is where I think a lot of us will primarily use this feature when trying to look for stuff. Now, typically, when a user comes to this platform or any other platform similar to Spring Link, your main objective of coming here is you want to look for something, correct? So in order to look for something, you must be able to prompt the search functionality the right way in order to get back the results that you so desire. Bear in mind that this universal search bar is not something like a Google search bar. So do not anticipate or do not expect to get the same kind of results that you were to get if you were to just randomly Google something. For example, type in a sentence, how to do a certain experiment with a question mark, and expect the platform to react in a way that you would anticipate. Especially today with the advent of a lot of AI or AI tools or large language modules or LLMs, some things like ChatGPT, for example. The platform does not employ that kind of functionality at the moment. It may do so in the future. That is yet to be seen. But it does work in a slightly different way, whereby it requires you to prompt it in not by asking a question, but by fine-tuning your keyword searches in a way which I will demonstrate. Okay, so that's the universal search bar. And below that, you will find that there are a few tabs that you can click on. So first of all, there's a tab for Discover Open Access. And for those of you who are familiar with that term, open access means content that is accessible to the public, regardless of your association to any academic or any other organization. So for example, if you were not a student from UMPSA, you can still come to the Springerlink platform and be able to access full text documents of articles and books that have been made open access. So open access, in other words, free to the available to the public to read and access, regardless of whether your university, if you are part of a university, or whether that university or your company pays for you to be able to access that content. Then there is another tab for Publish with Us. This is primarily utilized by authors who have already perhaps done some research and are now looking for a home to publish their content in our myriad of portfolio of journals and books. Then there's also a tab for Track Your Research. So this is after you have submitted a paper. So you may have already written a manuscript, you think you found the right home, and you've actually gone on and submitted a paper for publication. You can utilize this feature to track the progress of your submission in terms of where it's at, who's looking for it, is the peer reviewer already done with it, do you have to make any corrections, etc., etc. So a lot of these features are actually not found on the previous version or the previous user interface of Springerlink, which was only recently updated late last year, and now can be found here because the emphasis today, I think in line with the general trends of the publishing industry, is that we are moving towards more open access publications. Again, if you're familiar with that term, you understand what I mean. But also in order to make the whole full circle experience from someone like you, perhaps for the first time consuming content from our platform or other platforms, and ultimately conducting research, and then lastly finding a home to actually publish your findings so that you can contribute back to the research society itself. So we are trying to emphasize a lot more on open access and also the publication journey for you as authors. Scrolling down on the homepage, still on the homepage, you will find that there is now a section for call for papers. So for those of you who are perhaps familiar, if you are, for example, a postgraduate student, you may have experienced perhaps the challenge of looking for a good place to publish a journal article. Sometimes you may be looking for a journal which wants to publish a special issue for a particular topic. So for example, it could be, a trendy topic like AI in that space, or, a couple of years ago, it was COVID. And what journal articles and the editors of those journals typically call for papers, meaning they put out a public announcement calling for authors to submit articles for the next issue or for that particular issue to be published. And in the past, you would actually have to visit individually all 3,000 or so journals that are published within our portfolio in order to discover which one of them are calling for papers. But now there is technically a section on the homepage itself, which helps to simplify that, and you can actually see it. You can actually see it more easily and be aware of there are certain titles or journals, or certain editors of those journals who are calling for special papers for a specific issue perhaps they're working on. Now, if you've noticed that there is a login here, also under the call for paper section. Now, what I mentioned earlier about logging in and creating a profile. So this is one of those additional functionalities. If you had created a profile and actually spent some time on the platform actually will try to collect some historical data on your time spent browsing the platform itself. So let's say if I've logged in and I spent a lot of time on the platform looking at medical journals, and what will happen is the platform will remember and collect that data. So it's in a way a rudimentary form of artificial intelligence that will collect my behavioral history on the platform and realize that, oh, this user likes to read a lot of medical journals. Therefore, whenever I return back to the homepage and look at this call for papers section, it will then project the call for papers for predominantly the journals or the type of journals that I spend most of my time on the platform reading or visiting. So this in a way is more what we call personalized recommendations. So if you've created a profile and you've spent some time navigating through the platform, visiting different journals, reading different articles, the platform will actually study what you like to read in that sense, see what you've downloaded a lot, and then recommend to you um, the different aspects of the platform to try to give you a more personalized experience. So one of those additional features is this personalization for the call. Similarly, for trending research and also featured journals and also featured books, all of these sections will also have some impact if you were to create a profile, log in, and then spend some time on the platform, all of which will give you personalized recommendations in terms of the trending research. So if I were reading a lot of topics, a lot of papers on, for example, microbiology, it will then recommend a lot of new papers and books around the areas that I seem to be interested in. So if you were an engineering student, for example, and you've read a lot of books and articles around mechanical engineering, same goes for that. The platform will also prompt onto the screen different mechanical engineering papers and topics for you to recommend for you to read. So similarly here for featured journals and also for featured books. So the more you spend time on the platform, it actually gets to know you better. It then also tries to make your life or your experience on the platform a more pleasant one. Instead of wasting time, perhaps navigating through a lot of or filtering through a lot of different unnecessary or unwanted or uninteresting to you content that is not relevant. As you spend time, it will try to then push towards you content that is more relevant or more interesting as an individual. For this browse by subject section is actually another way for us to get started searching. So do not worry if you only realize that okay, there's only 3 by 4, so there are only 12 subjects listed here, and not all of them could be what you are interested in. So for example, medicine would be under health sciences, but it will be still part of the inside there. So if you don't see, for example, again, mechanical engineering, or you don't see artificial intelligence, it's not that those types of contents or subjects are not published in Springling. It's just that it has been probably been curated under one of these major subjects. So if you wanted, you can begin your searching journey by either clicking on one of these tabs, which perhaps we can do so right now. And I'm going to use the technology and engineering tab to start our demonstration. And what you'll notice is that the platform now has brought us to what we call the results page. So what you will see is that there is a results page. Under the results page, you will notice that there is already 2 filters applied. One is for engineering, one is for energy. You will also find that the universal search bar is still here, and you can still impact or filter further the results that have already been in this way pre-filtered under engineering and energy by adding more keywords using the universal search bar. But before doing that, I want to then spend some time explaining the other pre-filters that you can find on the left-hand side here. So under content type, if I expand the list, you will notice that the results page has actually divided all of the results, or 10,000 of the results, or the ones that you can see here, into the different types of content or documents. So chapters refers to chapters in individual books. Articles refer to journal articles in the journals themselves. So there are different types of articles. So if you're looking at all types of articles, they will be using this one. If you're looking for pure research articles, this one. Looking for conference papers, you can use this filter. You want to read whole books themselves, you can also use this. Reference works, referring to uh, chapters within an encyclopedia, for example, and also review articles, different other conference proceedings, textbooks, whole journals themselves, protocols which are more relevant to those of you who are working in a wet lab. So for example, if you're a microbiologist or someone working in chemistry, for example, you wanted to understand or to learn how to do a specific experiment, you can utilize this protocols filter to filter out documents that will showcase the experimentation procedure that will, for example, be you needed to do an experiment on how to create a certain substance by adding compound A with compound B under temperature C for D duration X atmosphere. You can do so by searching under this protocols. Springer Link, or in the future known as Springer Nature Link, does also actually publish videos. And these videos are not just any video that can be posted by randomly anyone. They are in fact videos created by authors of some of the books that are published on our platform, explaining the book itself. So basically going through chapter by chapter on what the book is. So instead of reading the book, you in a way could watch the book, watch the author of the book explain what it is he's trying to describe in the content of his book. And this is quite useful in certain subject areas that are perhaps more easily understood through demonstratively rather than reading. So for example, if there were a medical book explaining how to do a heart operation, to do surgery, open heart surgery on a patient, sometimes that would be easier seen or understood if you were to watch a video demonstration as opposed to reading how it would be described in words or in text. So if you're interested, you can always explore those as well. Moving on below, there is also a filter section where you can limit the results based on the date of publication. So I think for a lot of students, you are usually recommended to not look at content that are older than 5 years. And in certain subject areas, perhaps more in places like where there's fast-moving technological advances or in areas like medicine, for example, you typically don't want to look at content older than 6 to 12 months. You can actually limit the results based on this tab here, or you can actually set certain custom dates based on the years. Now, this could be useful for those of us who are from perhaps the social sciences area, whereby you perhaps want to discover a certain principle or learn when a certain principle was discovered and who was the original principle discoverer of that idea. So you can actually set a very old or very specific start date to try, to explore when this perhaps at a certain period of time, what was the state of the science at that moment. So you can always put a start year and end year. So for example, if I wanted to do 2020 to 2023, that's how I would do it, and I'll just leave it at that for now. In terms of languages, because we are a 180-year-old publisher and we have redigitized lots of our old content, we do actually publish quite a number of languages on the platform, albeit English is still the main and predominant. Over 98% of the content is published in English. And I think for our region, we're primarily English readers in that sense. Unfortunately, there is no Bahasa content on the platform. And then finally, when we get to subjects, if I scroll up quickly, you will notice that we've already pre-filtered engineering and energy because we had selected engineering and technology in the homepage earlier. But if we wanted to modify that, we can still do so. I can always click on things like artificial intelligence and look at the subdisciplines. I can also then click, let's put it, computational intelligence. And then what I can do is click update results. And what you'll notice is that a lot of these filters that I had selected earlier, I think I'm going to go ahead and click select one more in terms of articles. You will find that now all of this has been applied to the results. And what you then are left with in terms of the results here, the individual documents are applicable under all of these filters. So everything that we see from here on onwards will be a journal article that was published between 2020 to 2023, is published in the English language, and covers the area of engineering or computational intelligence and artificial intelligence. We can sort our content based on date of publish, or from new to old or old to new, or we can sort it based on the relevance to the different topics that we mentioned. I think in terms of starting out, if you're just trying to get a lay of the land or trying to get a basic understanding of the subject area itself. So for example, you may be a freshman student or you could be a year 3 student working on your final year project. You have an hypothesis question. So you have a hypothesis for your research and you wanted to understand where is the current state of science in that particular area. One way of doing so is by arranging relevance and then reading through some of these papers to get an understanding. Okay, so this is where what people have already discovered, what researchers all around the world have already discovered up to this point. And from there, you can then develop your hypothesis in order to fine-tune your research moving forward. So you can, again, you can do so. And what you will be left with are all of the different results based on the filters itself. So even though we have applied quite a number of filters, again, for journal articles from a certain date range, we only want English, and we have already predetermined a few in what you call it, subtopics or topics or disciplines like engineering, computational intelligence, artificial intelligence. There is still actually quite a number of results. So in one way, at least I'm showing you that you should be confident that there is plenty of content, literally thousands, not tens of thousands, up to millions of articles and books, book chapters that will be accessible to you and should be relevant to what you do in your university. But I think, practically, looking through 7,226, 27 results is quite a challenge. So in order for you, a good best practice would be, what I would recommend is to then fine tune this even further. And that's where this universal search bar comes into play. Now, of course, you could have always started your research, sorry, your searching from the universal search bar, either from the homepage or here. But this is a way that I would recommend you to do it if you have no reference point from whatsoever and you're starting out for the very first time. Because at least this way, it helps to narrow the field of searching. And then from here, you then fine tune it. So for example, I think what I could do is, as I mentioned earlier, don't copy in full sentences with question marks and commas and connectors and operators like and, or, if, etc. What you want to be doing is actually focusing on keywords. What I mean by keywords are certain words, individual words or phrases that you should type in using the correct connectors or the use of commas and things like and or in order to then fine-tune the results that you want from it. So I think, for example, I'm just going to use the term innovation to try to apply to the results that are already here and see what happens. So I'm going to type in innovation, and because it's only one word or one keyword or one term, I don't necessarily have to do the inverted commas in this sense. But if you wanted to, you can, and the results will generally be the same. And what we are left with, as you can see, once I applied the word innovation to these additional features, I have then, preempted myself. What I've then done is actually limited the results from, I think, the 7,000 over to now only 700 plus results. So this is progress. This is useful progress. But what you should then do is then again scan through perhaps the title of the papers, looking at perhaps the journal names themselves, and then seeing whether or not, okay, does this sort of land in the area of what you are looking for? Does this touch on certain topics or the keywords is the results showing you roughly the kinds of material that you ought to be reading, that you think generally this looks relevant to what I should be studying or reading about in terms of contributing towards your literature review later on. Okay, if in doing so you think it is still not enough, what you can also do then is then build on top of that even further. So, but bear in mind, every time you add a new keyword, you are then cross-referencing versus the existing filters. So, for example, if I wanted to add another one, so innovation, and I'm now going to put process inside, I made sure to put it as 2 inverted commas on the specific keywords that I wanted to do, and not to have left it, for example, like this. Because what this will happen is that it may then now search different terms, the terms of innovation and the word "and" as a keyword and the word processes. But in fact, what we should be doing, and if I'm doing this correctly, as you can see, demonstrated this well, still works correctly, but what I would recommend is doing so is always doing it like this, because the word "and" sometimes may have an adverse effect on your search results. But essentially, if I can explain what's happening here, is that now all of the 708 results that are displayed here onwards have all of these filters and contains the term innovation and process in the text of the documents themselves. So not necessarily in the title of the document, but lives within the full body text of the document itself. Now, if I change this, for example, to all, what would happen? And obviously, we then expand the results, because now what will happen is, of all the pre-filtered content, I think I started with 7,000 over. Now we limit or expand, actually, in fact, the results from to include the term innovation or the term process, or both of them inside of it. And therefore, you can see that now the results has gone back up to 6,000. So if you want to limit that to, and again, I think this is much better and more reasonable. And typically, you would play around with it. So we would recommend not putting more than 4 or 5 keywords, because what that happens is after certain number of keywords, you tend to not get any results anymore, as you would have then been making your search query too niche. So something too specific, which may not necessarily be. And again, try not to put in full sentences with question marks, because even question marks and certain special figures on your keyboard may have an effect on what are the results that comes up. So now that let's pretend that we're happy with these results, I can now take the opportunity to showcase to you what the journal article is. So let's say I'm all good, I played around a few times, I've changed my keywords and said, oh, you know what? Now it's looking like the results are all like very, very relevant. These are things I should definitely read, judging from the title and also perhaps the first few words or first few lines of that paper itself. Okay, so I already know that they are from a certain period, and this period is relevant to my search query. So I want to go ahead and start reading these papers. What you can do so is actually click on now the title itself. What you will then be transported to is you'll be redirected to the article's homepage. So you're now within the journal and within an article within that journal. And this article's title is called Technological Innovation in the Recognition Process of Yaozu's Kiln, where pattern space of image classification. Now, I'm not familiar with these terms or this topic, but nonetheless, I can explain to you what you can see. So this article is published from the 5th of June of 2023 and lives within the journal called Soft Computing. As you can see here, right? This is what the journal front cover looks like if you were to see a physical copy in your library. And more importantly, you will realize if you had full access to this content, if you are logged in correctly and you're searching for content that is relevant to your university, more often than not, you would be able to see that access is provided to you by UMPSA. And that, if you see that sign, you would then be able to either read the full text on the platform itself, as what you are seeing I am doing here. You will notice that I not only be able to read and see the abstract, which is, of course, accessible to every article, regardless of subscription, and also the full text. So I'm already in the introduction section. I can navigate to the related works, different sections or subsections of this in paper itself, and you will see I'm able to read and see the full text of the paper itself. So this, in order to do so, you obviously need to be connected to the internet. Of course, you are once you get here. But if you wanted to read this paper offline or save it for later, you can download a PDF copy of it just by clicking on this button. And depending on the browser that you are utilizing, you can either do so it will either prompt you to where you want to save it, or like mine automatically downloads it for me, and then you can then open it on from your hard drive. Okay, so I'm opening up the PDF now just to demonstrate it to you, and you will note, hopefully you can see the screen, and you will notice that this is again a full paper. So you can see here, this is the title of the article, and now we can see the abstract. On top of that, we're able to see the actual full body text of it. All right. So this PDF, it is a PDF because number one, PDFs are the most widely used format of documents that I think is accessible to anyone with a smart device, even a rudimentary smart device like a very simple smartphone. It's small and compact in terms of the size of the file, easily transmittable or shareable. And because all articles, all documents on Springer Nature are what we call DRM free, it does not have digital rights management, meaning you are able to, number one, download it, of course, I just demonstrated. You are able to select, highlight, copy, paste text from the document itself, and you are able to make a copy of this file on your computer or your thumb drive, and you share it with your let's say your classmates or your colleagues or your research partners because of the DRM free functionality. Now, just because it's a PDF, it doesn't mean it's a plain Jane PDF. Our PDFs are also embedded with what we call metadata. Meaning to say, like for example, you will notice that throughout the PDF itself, you will find hyperlinks in the citations that the author has utilized. And these hyperlinks are active or live, meaning if you were again connected to the internet when reading the PDF, you can actually navigate to the cited papers that the author has cited. On top of that, if you were to take this entire PDF file and then drop it into a reference manager, so I believe some, if not most of you, are familiar with tools such as Mendeley, Yeap, and the likes of these kind of reference managers. So software that essentially help you to organize or fully utilize the functionality of these types of PDFs for your manuscript writing later on. Because of the metadata available, you have the full functionality of, for example, having the citation done for you automatically on the reference manager. You have the ability to change the formatting. You have the ability to then really perhaps, once this is uploaded into your reference manager, be redirected to or be able to find other relevant papers using the reference manager because of the metadata that exists into it. So think of it as like the soul of the PDF that helps to give some identity or to make all these links that are available on the PDF useful to you during your research journey. You can also print this PDF. So for those many of us that are still perhaps more comfortable in reading these kind of texts before we go to bed at night, and we want to do so not using by looking at the screen, you can actually print out a copy of this paper in its entirety. So you can print out the full text. You can print out several copies of it in case you needed to share it with a tutorial group or your lab mates in the future. And don't worry, because again, it's DRM free. You will be able to do so without any limitation. And you can print all of the pages all at the same time. I understand there are certain platforms or certain types of PDFs where it only perhaps limits you in, maybe you can only print 5 pages at one go, or 5 pages added tomorrow. But for our PDFs, there is no such limitation. Okay, and we do so as an academic and research partnership in the spirit of research and development. Meaning to say, all is fair in game, in the sense of, for you, if you're utilizing this for your research, for your study, for doing, for doing actual experiments and research, and not for the use of reselling. And of course, if you're worried about copyright infringement, the very fact that this is accessible to you through your library, it means that your university has already taken care of all of the necessary copyright restrictions and whatsoever to be able to allow you to utilize this content freely for educational and research purposes. And I know that because you guys are students, you're lecturers at the university, you're not in the business of reselling content or doing any forms of piracy. However, it's not all roses forever. There are some limitations to reading the content on the PDF. And I think number one of which is typically when you have things like graphs or images that require high fidelity or high image quality, sometimes PDF is not able to give you the best of that. Now, in situations whereby if we look at this graph here, this sigmoid graph here, this is a very simple graph, and not much detail is necessary, or that would perhaps change the meaning if we were to be interpreted wrongly. But imagine if you were looking at a image under a microscope slide, and the small minute details in the way a certain shape might be or a different color difference would then change the results or the interpretation of that data of that image itself. Then what I would recommend is going back to the live version online, going to the figure section that which you can see over here. And what you will see is that you can easily, number one, navigate to the different parts of the different figures of the type paper itself, but more importantly, be able to view the full image that was uploaded by the authors themselves. So again, for example, perhaps this is maybe not the best example for this, but this image, if it were important to perhaps differentiate between the different curves or the different depths of the different markings on this image, then perhaps viewing this way rather than on the PDF, which you can find here, for example, which is then limited to this size. And for example, and furthermore, if you were to utilize this image from the PDF for purposes of, for example, putting it on the slide for your next PowerPoint presentation, you will be limited to screen grabbing this and then copying it, putting it on PowerPoint, which would then, of course, be limited in terms of the granularity or the precision of the image. So it might not be as clear, that's what I'm saying. So when you start to blow it up, make it larger, or play with the shape or the orientation, you might lose the clarity of it. So it's probably best to just cite and hyperlink to the image live on the website itself to be able to appreciate the full depth or the full clarity of the image that you want to reference itself. So that's just one example that I want to demonstrate. And if we scroll more, we're back here on the HTML or the live version. If we scroll to the very bottom of the page, you will notice a few more additional functionalities. So first and foremost I can point out is, again, all of the references are arranged here, and you can navigate to the cited papers or books, which are all on the internet. And you can then have all of the links here. Whether or not you have access to the full text of those, if they were in Springerlink, then most likely you do. But if they were, for example, on Science Direct, Wiley Online Library, Taylor and Francis Online, other platforms, it really depends on the accessibility from your library. So do check on that. You can find things like funding information about the authors, and also if there are any declarations in terms of ethics. So very important for subject areas like medicine in terms of clinical trials. And also You can cite the article, you cite this actual paper using the technology embedded in. So you can actually download the citation and then put that into your reference manager later on, again, in order for it to automate that process. And then lastly, if you were perhaps collaborating with users outside of your university who may not be part of any organization that has access to this paper, what you can do is actually share with them this article by copying this share article link. So you can copy this link, send it to them via WhatsApp, put it in an email, put it in an invite somehow. And when your friends or your colleagues or your co-collaborators click on the link given to them, they will be redirected to this page and they will be able to see the full text as well. The only difference is they will not be able to download a PDF copy of it, as they may not necessarily be associated with an institution that has a subscription to this particular journal. Alternatively, you could also share the PDF which you have downloaded in the first place. Okay, so hopefully this is how now helps you understand what a journal article looks like. I would take a half step back and go to the journal itself. So as I mentioned earlier, this article is published in this journal called Soft Computing. And we can go to the homepage of the journal by clicking on the name journal. And you will find that now we have arrived at the homepage of this journal, Soft Computing, a fusion of foundations, methodologies, and applications. This is a journal which has a hybrid publishing model, meaning to say it publishes both a combination of open access articles and also articles that live behind a paywall, which are not accessible unless you have a subscription access to. Now, why is it important to perhaps sometimes navigate or necessary to visit the homepage of the journal? You do so for a few reasons. Number one, if you were again exploring articles under this journal, you wanted to get a sense of what kind of other papers that this journal also publishes, right? So we read that one journal earlier about that kiln. Now, if we wanted to see whether we may be able to find other articles, similar articles, we can then study this journal itself. How do we do so? We can read a little bit about the overview here, which typically tries to give a brief explanation on what kind of papers that this journal publishes, what kind of topics it talks about. But if we want to know in greater depth, we can actually click on the aims and scope section. This aims and scope works two ways, in my opinion. Number one, and the first, which I just explained earlier, if you're looking for something to read, it then provides in greater detail what is it that is published in this paper in terms of what kind of paper, what kind of topics does it accept, and who is it meant for, who should read these papers, and why do they publish these papers. On the flip side, if you are someone who is looking to publish a paper, your manuscript after doing research, and if you're wondering if this journal is the right journal for your manuscript, you can also discover that here by reading the aims and scope very clearly to first of all understand, for example, does it publish manuscripts that are related to your work? So you find, for example, your manuscript covers the areas of a fusion of research in evolutionary algorithm, genetic programming, swarm intelligence, neuroscience, neural net system, fuzzy set theory, fuzzy systems, Bayesian networks, chaos theory, and chaotic systems, then great. This could be a suitable journal for your manuscript. But if not, and you still do decide to submit for publishing anyway, then more likely than not, you will be rejected because this paper does not want to publish articles relevant to your manuscript. Okay? So you can see here, it really does provide greater detail, all of the things that it will accept in terms of publishing, or what the editors themselves are looking for in publishing. If we go back to the homepage again, you can also click on the editorial board. This helps you to, in a way, judge the paper or judge the journal to see its credibility. And if you are someone who is fervent in doing research or doing literature review in your space, more often than not, you are familiar with the key opinion leaders, the experts, the true experts of that particular subject area. And sometimes it is possible to be able to see those names on the editorial boards of the journals that you are rightfully looking at. This helps to solidify the notion that you might have found the right place to come and read or look for more journal articles to read, because these are the leading experts in that field, number one. And number two, these are the same people that you might have cited a lot in your own manuscript, because again, they are the experts in their field and you're referencing a lot of the research that they have previously done to get us to the point, to the current state of science itself. So if you recognize a lot of the names, it also helps to give you, give you that sense of, I'm looking at the right journal, or this is the right journal for me to publish in because I see a lot of your peers in this space. Now, if you wanted to know, for example, how many people read this journal, or also importantly, although not independently important, the journal impact factor of this paper, you can see it here, and this is with the latest results for 2023. So this journal has an impact factor of 3.1, 5-year impact factor of 3.2, and has a first submission to first decision median of 50 days. Meaning to say that this paper takes on average 50 days to respond to the authors who submitted their papers on whether or not to first accept or to reject the manuscript when you submitted for it. So it takes more than roughly 2 months. And if you have submitted a paper or you're going to submit a paper to this journal in the future, please expect to take more than 4 weeks to be able to get a response from them, and do not worry that your paper has gone missing or whatnot. Furthermore, if you scroll below, you can actually take a look at all of the different issues and volumes of this journal. The latest one is actually published in August, volume 28, issue 15 to 16. And these are the articles that are published from the latest issue itself. There are also certain updates, so including the call for papers that I mentioned earlier. And you have then below here, very importantly, the list of abstracts or indexes that this particular journal is indexed in. So I think in Malaysia, it's quite important to take note of Scopus and this citation index. In this case, it's under the expanded category. So in this way, I think this journal then qualifies for those of you who are looking to graduate for your postgraduate degree or something like that. So submitting to this one and being published in this one would qualify you. Okay, so this is what a journal looks like. And perhaps what I want to do next is actually to find an opportunity to show you what an open access article from this journal looks like. So as I touched on earlier, this is a hybrid publishing journal. And if I look at all of the articles, sorry, there it was. Back. If I showcase to you an open access article, there is a feature here that helps to pre-filter all of the open access papers from just this one journal itself. You will notice that we have been brought to a slightly different results page. This is actually what the older version of Springer Link looks like, but as you can tell, the interface is slightly different, but the contents or functionality is actually the same. But in this slightly older version, which will be updated later, you will find that there is this symbol that says open access. Now, open access refers, again, if you're not familiar, it is article or this document itself is freely accessible to anyone on Earth. It does not matter of your association to the organization that you are from. So if you're just a member of the public, you can actually access and go in and read this paper. Click on it. You can read the full abstract, the full introduction, download a copy of the PDF. It does not matter. You can do so freely without limitation. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that if you see this term open access, this is what an open access journal looks like. In the terms of the format, it's exactly the same. There are no differences. The only difference is that you can download it and read it completely free, right? There are no limitations or inhibitions for you. Okay, so taking a quick pause here, let you digest that for 10 seconds. I'm going to quickly run back to the home page and take a few more minutes to then showcase to you how we can do the search starting from the universal search bar. And then I now want to show you what a ebook looks like before we end our training. So first and foremost, while we're back here on the home page, you can then use this universal search bar, and I can put in a number of keywords. Now, for example, I can put things like, again, I'm just going to use innovation. I'm going to put the terms like, let's put artificial intelligence. Now I'm going to put and finance. Okay, just to touch on a little bit of the social sciences side, as we've been focusing on the physical sciences side. And what you see now, I have then have a set of results that are covering innovation, AI as a term. If you notice, AI is 2 words. And if you had typed that as artificial intelligence without inverted commas, it will look for artificial in one term and intelligence as another term separately, and also finance. And then these are the results that I get. I now want to look for a book. So I'm going to limit books, and I'm going to update the results. Sorry, update results. And what you can see here now is that we are now limited to only 24 books that cover innovation, artificial intelligence, and finance. So what we can do is we can just click on any one of these, go in, right? And yes, I think it's important to note, you may not have access to as many books as journal articles via your university, but you still have thousands, as I demonstrated earlier. And I think a lot of newer books will be published more and more as open access. So you will continue to be able to gain benefit from a growing portfolio of ebooks, regardless of whether or not your library or your institution acquires books, okay? And the growth is in all areas, in all different subjects. So for this case, this is a book called Artificial Intelligence, Analytics, Platforms, and Risks. You can see this is the author. This is what you call the synopsis of the book, especially here. And this is what you will find typically on the back end, the back cover of the book, if you were holding it. All right. And one thing you will realize is that this book, yes, where are the chapters? Oh, sorry. Okay. This is a book that is about to be published and not yet published. Actually, this is an early view. So I've, in a way, jumped the gun. Maybe I should take another book. So let's just say use this one. Yes, here we go. So this book, sorry about that. This book is Artificial Intelligence for Future Society. This is the back cover. And what you'll notice, and I wanted to show you earlier, is actually books are divided into chapters. And this particular book has 67 chapters, 67 papers, right? So books are different, that they are a one-off. So they're not a periodical, meaning you don't keep adding new documents to a different book, but you just publish either a whole new book or different versions of a book. And the chapter that lives in a particular book will forever be there, right? So you can either choose to download the entire book by clicking on this page up, these 2 tabs up here. You have a choice of either a PDF or an EPUB. So those are I think PDF we're all familiar. For those of you who are not familiar with EPUB, EPUB means it's a format where instead of scrolling up and down like you would normally see a PDF, this is more lifelike. And if you are an avid reader, or you buy books a lot from like the Amazon bookstore online, or you have a Kindle device, typically those books are in the EPUB format, and it has a more realistic feel of flipping pages from left to right, that kind of thing. So content is the same, the format is slightly different. Both of which will allow you to download all 67 papers or chapters of the same book in its entirety as a whole book itself. Alternatively, in the most use cases of books, you don't usually want to read all 67 chapters. You could, of course, no problem. But usually when doing research, you're usually more attracted to individual chapters within. And therefore, you can actually download the individual chapters themselves. So you can search within this book, what are the parts of the book that you want, and then therefore download the individual chapters themselves. And in doing so, in this case, you only have the option of PDF. But what it does is it then limits, instead of you downloading, how big is it? This book is more than a couple hundred pages long. So instead of downloading 700 plus pages, you can actually just download a few pages of that book, and then which would then be a bit more useful to you rather than looking through the entire book itself. So if I just open up a sample of this, so let's say chapter 2 of this book, you will notice that in PDF looks the same like any other book that you would see if you were holding it in the library. And it also has DRM free. And because of that, it has the metadata embedded into the book itself. So again, utilizing the functionality or the automation that you can get by implanting this book or just dragging and dropping this book into your reference manager. Okay, so as you see, books themselves are, depending on the books, some of them will have color. And again, if the difference is, because books are only limited to PDFs, there is no ability to see the full view of this. Okay, yeah, so that's what a book is. Additional information or bibliographic information about the book can be found at the bottom of the page. If you wanted to navigate to the different section of the book of the homepage of the book, you can do so using this navigation pane on the right hand side. Okay, so yeah, just wanted to take opportunity to showcase that itself. And then lastly, I think I wanted to point out, I know we are a bit strapped for time. I wanted to point out some of the additional functionality of the search bar. And yes, so if I bring your attention, you click up here, or if you see the notice, every time you're in the research results page, you can actually go back to the old search navigation or method, and there are still a few functionality that is available here and not yet on the new user interface. The first of which is the limitation of only showcasing the results after you've done all your filtering and all your keywords manipulation. You can uncheck this box to give you the documents or the books or the chapters that you only have 100% access to. So because the platform publishes literally millions of contents on a monthly basis, not 100% is accessible to you. But if you only wanted to limit the results when you're doing your searching to things that you can see, you have to uncheck this box, but you would have to do so using this older user interface. Okay. And then lastly, there is an additional search help feature, which if you click here, it will actually explain to you how to, in greater detail, of the different language and stemming, phrase matching, the different operators you can use. So again, or, not, and, near, one near, or the different wildcards or question marks that you can use. Now, I don't want to go into detail explaining every single one of this today. In reality, you should actually take the time to play around with it. I think that's the best way to get familiar. But taking some advice or hints from some of these operators will give you a better search results, and therefore deliver better search results for you when you are doing your literature review or you're doing your study in that sense, looking for content on the platform. Okay, so I think I have explained quite a lot today. We may not have touched on every single thing on the platform, but if you have questions, I think this will be a good opportunity for you to think about them. whilst I catch a drink of water and before we head over to the secret word game. So I'll open up the opportunity now for those of you who are interested. If you have a question, please type it out at the chat box. And I think Xian, you can read them out too, if there are any.
I don't see a question for now at the chat box.
Okay, yeah, no worries. We will leave it for a minute or so, and while people think about it. Nonetheless, we can always jump back to the slides a little bit and then get ready for the secret word game. So I'll just let everyone have a minute. Any questions? Chilling. If you, and I think a lot of the skills or the little bits of knowledge that you found here today, if it's new to you, can be applied to other platforms as well. So I encourage you to actually practice them. The more time you spend on these platforms, you are literally building up your skill set as a researcher, as a student, in your capacity to do research. And the more you spend time on platforms like that, the more expert you will be. And no doubt, if you spend quite some time on these platforms, you will be even a greater expert compared to. So good luck in your future endeavors. Good luck in your studies and your research. If you encounter problems, like I said earlier, please reach out to your local librarians. If they don't have the answer for you, they will reach out to us as well. And I think after this, you, as what Xian has mentioned earlier, you will receive a certificate of attendance for today, I think virtually via the webinars app. So look out for that. And I want to thank you on behalf of Springer Nature, and I'll hand it back over to you, Xian.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That concludes the session of our Springer Nature Link platform training. I think the librarians will also send everyone a survey, so please feel free to fill that in. It will be very good to hear your feedback. And if you have recommendations for Springer Nature, you could also hand it over to the same survey form. Thank you very much. I confirm that I see no questions. There is someone who's asking, can you get the recording? Yes, the recording will be shared to you by the librarians. And just to bear in mind, all certificates will be given to you after the training session. So we look forward to hear from your sharing, and we hope to see you again. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Thank you
Bye.
for joining. Take care. See you all the next time we do this kind of trainings.